life. You got this. Go chase it, live your life. Enlighten you. Let the light shine through. Enlighten you. Just see it through.
I'm Melissa Thrasher.
And I'm Lolita Cummings.
Welcome to Enlighten U, Eastern Michigan University's podcast for students. As you all know, we normally cover only one subject area on the show, but today we're going to do things a little bit differently and cover two: the unique challenges of being a student athlete and social media.
Yes. Now, these are obviously two very different topics, but we have one amazing student who in a minute will share her experiences with both. You know, just last month, 5 CEOs of our largest social media companies, Facebook, X, TikTok, Snap, and Discord, all traveled to Washington, D.C. to speak at a hearing on safeguarding all of you from social media. It was emotional at times, it was contentious at times, and there were many tears, some from parents who have lost their children as a result of social media. But we know the harm is not limited to minor children. It affects all of us, and that's why we need to talk about it today.
That is so true. So today we welcome on the show Elena Davis and Aesha Mustafa. Elena is a member of EMU's cheer team and a frequent social media user. Aesha is a licensed therapist and an assistant professor in EMU's Department of Leadership and Counseling. Welcome Elena and Aesha to the show. All right, so welcome Elena and Aesha to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So this segment, we're talking about social media harms. And Lolita had mentioned earlier on that there was this meeting that took place in DC, and it was quite a contentious meeting, very sad meeting, because parents voiced their concerns about social media and how some of them lost their kids to social media. So this is a thing.
Yeah.
The question is, should they be blaming the social media companies? And I'd like to pose that to both of you. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I personally don't think it's a full blame on social media companies. I do think that they're just doing their job, which is super important to think about. More social media careers have opened up. You can see it, and it is a thing that is happening. Social media is so much more popular than it is back when I was growing up. I mean, I look around and I see my little cousins, and they're on TikTok, and just the younger generation in general. It's crazy to see that, because I grew up learning how to use social media. They're growing up using it consistently, and I wasn't allowed to have it until I was a freshman in high school, and I'm a junior now, and it's in college, and it is something that we need to talk about, something that is happening, and it's expanding as we grow.
Yeah, and for me, I got Facebook the summer before my first year in college. So at that time, I think it was becoming popular, and you had to have the university email to get it. And so I don't think these social media companies are completely at blame. I think it is a community issue of how are we teaching our kids to engage with social media? What is their relationship with it? I think about the younger people in my family, even 3-year-olds, and thinking about what do we teach them of how to engage with us? For parents, what are we telling them of, are we monitoring their usage, having conversations of, hey, you seem upset? But there are a lot of benefits of using social media as well.
Those are really, really good, important points. I was listening to Good Morning America and some news, and found out that the state of New York is suing some of the social media companies because they said that they are creating a mental health crisis in this country, and it's unfair for some of the states to bear the cost of the treatment. Where is that liability? What are the social media companies doing, per se, to create this crisis? I mean, as a typical user, I can't see it, but obviously there are some very real consequences to what's happening. What are they doing that I can't see? Is it making it so addictive? Is it pushing inappropriate content? What's going on?
Yeah, well, as for me, I am a big TikTok person. I love Instagram, I love TikTok, I love Snapchat. I've had it for years. And you know, I'm sure a lot of people in my generation can agree with that. And it is more like what the parents are doing. For example, like I said, my parents didn't let me have it until I was a little bit older, and it's addicting. Like, I like to think that TikTok winds me down at night. I like to think that it helps me go to sleep, but in reality, I know it's scientifically proven to actually not do that at all. But for some reason, it's like I want that instant serotonin, and I get that from those social media apps. And I don't think it's the social media companies. I think it's honestly us, you know, that is making it addictive. People are posting constantly. It's different topics. Like, it's just that instant serotonin of like, oh, different topic over and over again, you know? So that's how I see it, at least.
So what do you think, Aisha? Is it advisable to use social media right before you go to bed? I mean, does it put you to sleep or does it make you up? What is it doing?
So in general, social media, not trying to use it before bedtime, but it's also the phone in general. So then it's like, are we bringing into conversation that phones, do they bear responsibility? So like the blue light at night, tried to have it away, but I think what's the relationship? So what social media is doing is this algorithm of what you may click on one day, just a search, they start pulling in this data and sending more content like that. So I also use social media at night.
But like, we all do, right?
Yeah, but I've had to change the algorithm. So Instagram for me is a lot of dogs, but I also love social justice. And so I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I want to try this in my classroom. This is exciting. But then I'm in work mode and I have to think about, okay, how do I engage in the space? Because I'm a social worker. I want to learn about all these resources, but then it can be very upsetting. And then I have this moment of like, but I should know about these social justice issues. I'm a bad person if I don't know this.
Right.
Midnight's not the time for this. And so I think figuring out like what's the relationship and how do you use it.
Yeah, and going off what she said, I think that brings a good point about phones in general. I use TikTok and Instagram so much that it's starting to get hard to watch shows and movies. I can't stay off my phone when I'm watching a movie, and that's something that's sad for me. Like, you know, I used to enjoy watching shows, and I'm not saying my shows aren't interesting. They're super, you know, good, but it's just like I can't stay off my phone. And when I started realizing that, I actually set a screen time on my phone. And so, yeah, so I only have TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram for 2 hours a day. So
that's a good practice to have. But for college students that may not have that practice, and I like what you mentioned about scrolling.
yeah.
That can be addictive.
Oh, yeah.
You know, looking at pictures and, you know, how do I compare to this next person?
Yeah.
How can a college student monitor what they're doing? And I guess the biggest question is, when is enough enough?
Yeah, I think thinking about how does it make you feel when you see different content? Like, are you finding joy? Are you bummed that you're seeing friends or colleagues out and you're not there? I think setting a timer before you do it, because it's super easy to all of a sudden be like, I've been in bed for 40 minutes this morning and I didn't start my day. Are we looking to see do we miss something? I think those are great things. I also think for myself, like I don't have the Facebook app on my phone. And so I used to go to my browser. So there's a little bit of a barrier to just have to click that. And I don't see the notifications. But ironically, when I took it, I wasn't logging or I wasn't going on for a while. I started getting emails from Facebook of like someone posted something. And so this is like sneaky way. And I'm like, yeah. And I think they were sending texts too. And I was like, okay. And I think the data of like the end of the weekly report, because we all think, oh, we just scroll really quick. We're at the stoplight, yada, yada, yada. But it adds up. And I think looking across the platforms, you know, I've worked with students where Twitter is where they're engaging in social policy issues. But then it's like, I'm amped up at midnight having this conflict and I'm waiting for someone to respond. And like, that may not be the relationship you want with social media.
I mean, yeah, I don't have my notifications on for any of my social media apps. And I think that's very important. It kind of trains my brain to thinking like, I don't need to go on there, you know, until maybe at night. But, you know, those things. And like, I mean, my For You page is probably different than everyone in this room. I'm a big sports girl. Mine is all sports all the time. I mean, that's how I catch up with everything. I can't watch every game ever, you know, so just that's how I see it.
You know, you're a cheerleader, right?
Yes.
For EMU, right? Go Eagles.
Go Eagles.
So let's talk about the platforms that you use. You mentioned TikTok. Are you on X?
I am, but I don't use it as much as I use the other platforms.
What is your favorite platform and why?
So mine is definitely Instagram. Now that they added Instagram stories, Instagram reels, it's kind of like TikTok and Snapchat combined. And it's dangerous for me. I mean, I spend hours on it just scrolling. And I mean, like I said before, like my thing is sports. Like I love sports. So I follow all the sports accounts, all of that. And honestly, I'm saying all the negatives here, but there's so many positives with social media. I mean, like I said, I catch up with my favorite teams. I mean, just finding out like what is going on in the world, in the sports world, and other things like that, catching up with my friends. And it is really powerful, but Instagram is definitely my favorite. Yeah, that's the one I have the most hours on. But
I love that you found these tips to help you to limit your usage. You know, you set the
definitely.
timers and you turn off the notifications.
Yes.
That's great. But I have a question about something that you said, and I want to ask it of you. You said, that you can't watch your movies now, right? So you want these short bursts. Is there a correlation, and it just occurred to me, between like maybe ADHD and social media usage?
Yeah, it's the quick dopamine hit of I saw this content, and then the apps. I'm out on TikTok because I remember when I was like, should I download this? I was like, ooh, this is really dangerous.
Right.
And so I did, but surprisingly, I didn't feel like learning a new platform. And my friends will send me something, but it's 10 seconds, and then it'll say streaming next. And then it is just repetitive. It's not like they purposely don't stop with it. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you found that as well? That
Yeah,
your attention span is a little
I
shorter?
also am diagnosed with ADHD, and I can talk about that too. I'm very open about it. So I think that plays a major role in me not sitting still, but during movies. But social media is I find myself just scrolling on TikTok and all these things.
So is there part of our own responsibility for this instead of putting it all on the social media companies?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it really them kind of tricking us with their algorithms and, with their emails? If you don't have, if you're not on there, it's like, hey, we're still here.
Yeah.
I mean, so where is their responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, their job is marketing, and
They do a good job.
they do a very
Yeah,
they're
do a
very
good
good
job.
at their job. But then even other companies that aren't social media are doing this. So I think it's a community responsibility. When we think about recruitment for our academic programs, they're like, well, everyone's on social media. Do we need to have an Instagram account to reach them? Because that's how they're finding out programs. And I'm like, yes, I have no desire to be a part of that because I don't want Instagram for me to have a work relationship, for example. But I think it's educating our youth, adults, about how do you use this tool? Like Elena said, I like social media now for Facebook groups. So I often will tell my clients, hey, there's this group, I think it's great. So my own relationship right now is I'm 7 months pregnant. So I want to learn about all the parenting resources, the different Washtenaw County resources. And I could Google these, but I don't even know where to start. Yeah. So people will say, hey, it's camp season coming up. You should get on this. And my kid's clearly not going to camp anytime soon. But they'll say this in January about the summer, and you would never have known that. And so thinking about how do you engage, and is it stressful or not? Because groups can be amazing. And then my brain goes to read the comments.
Yeah.
Why?
Absolutely.
Why? And often it's just because I kind of want to be annoyed at something. It's not always helpful.
Yeah. Well, I love that point. I was applying for summer internships for this upcoming summer, and it's so crazy to me how much social media has changed. And it's just wild because I'm applying for it, and I had to put my TikTok and my Instagram handle.
Oh, wow.
You did?
I did.
But there's
Required.
a reason for that.
Yeah, and they're looking at my digital footprint and all that, and
Yes.
that's fine. I don't got anything to hide. But it's just funny to me because I'm like, I never had to do that. And I've had multiple jobs before, and it's just wild. Even back in high school, I didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
That's a really good lesson for all of our students.
Absolutely.
Clean up your social media
Yeah.
profiles before
Yes.
you apply for jobs
Yes.
because
Yes.
employers
Modify your
are looking for the
posts.
real you.
Yes.
And that's where it is.
And
right?
make sure your handle is
not ratchet.
PG-13.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want to ratchet.
Right. We don't want
Yeah.
We don't want to go there.
And it helps that I'm a cheerleader too, because I'm not allowed to post these crazy posts, and I'm not going to anyways. But it helps, get that mindset. And I used to be taught post like your grandma's gonna see it, you know, like stuff like that.
That's something to think
Yeah,
about.
like, so I always think about that. I'm like, would my grandma laugh at this, or would my grandma be like, you know, but that's how I see it, at least. And I mean, it was wild when I saw that. I was like, oh, shoot, okay, I'll put my Instagram and TikTok handle in there, but it was crazy, yeah.
Even in the academic spaces at conferences, it's not required, but, oh, do you want people to follow you? And it's like, no. There is a separation for me. So
You're
that
very
can be
smart
difficult.
about
Yes,
that.
exactly.
I like that. And these are all techniques that I need to pay attention to. So social media is a big part of my role here at EMU. And I find myself, I love scrolling, and I'm on everything except Threads. And there are a few others that I'm not on. But I get like really excited when I see the number of likes that I have on a post that I shared. You know, I know it's working, right? And I'm finding myself, and this is not good to say in public, but this is a question that I want to pose to the two of you. If I'm at a stoplight, I might just look and say, okay, I'm just wondering, because I don't have the alerts, but I'm wondering how many likes is this?
absolutely.
Is this doing the job it's supposed to do?
Absolutely.
So this next question involves a name, FOMO, and I had to look that up thanks to Lolita. I'm like, FOMO, what is FOMO? But let's talk about FOMO and you know, time and all of that. How do we prioritize our time and not feel like it's taken over our life?
So I am very guilty of FOMO. I get it very often. I actually started experiencing more in college because this sounds, you know, to all my friends out there watching this, but they're a year above me. So they are all 21 and up, and I'm still 20. So it poses that question of like, I can't go and do some things with them. And it was hard. And, you know, and I'm grateful to have them. They're my biggest support system. But I don't like to think of FOMO, the fear of missing out. I don't like to think of it as the fear. I like to think of it as the joy. And that took a lot of self-growth and discovery to find that out. But I started thinking, like, why am I being excluded from these people? Why am I not invited there or doing this, or that post isn't getting as much likes? I'm posting it because I like the picture.
Yeah.
I'm posting it because I had fun taking them. Things like that. Like, I do a day in my life on my TikTok a lot, and like I get maybe 100 likes, but it's 100 likes from people. Okay, but comparing it to, I'm sorry,
for at least 100.
but comparing it to like other day in the lives, you know, that I see constantly that have like 100,000 likes, like, you know, it's just, that's how I see it, at least. And that's a big comparison right there, like, that I just did in my head. But things like that, like, it's still 100 people that I'm close with, still 100 people that support me. But the joy, I like to think of it as the joy of missing out. The things that, like, okay, maybe I like to think of, you know, everything happens for a reason, and maybe that time wasn't my reason, or, you know, maybe I wasn't supposed to be there at that time with those people. That's how I see FOMO.
That is such a transformative way of thinking, and such a positive way of thinking about it, because if you really have fear of missing out, then there may be some jealousy creeping in there, you know, some anger, a little bit hatred, you know, a little shade in there. But if it's all about you and your joy, then it just completely changes the way that you see that, and your mindset and your attitude, and the way you feel about yourself. I love that you were able to do that. Yeah.
It's actually a term, JOMO. Joy of missing
Yeah.
out. Yeah. It actually is a term. And like, I think with intentionality, when you go on, having a pre-conversation of like, okay, the notifications are not relate to my self-value. I encourage people that I feel like for myself that 12 to 4 a.m. is not the time for social media that you're seeing the pictures. You're like, I'm here alone, maybe it's on the weekend, and feeling upset by everyone's having fun. Even things like, okay, if I'm gonna go on social media, don't compare your body to other people, because there's also this thing of like, you post pictures, you're like, is this a good one? Because you want to highlight the beautiful thing versus take the picture if you want, and like not criticize these things. And so like that takes a lot of intentionality. And when we engage with social media, the quick hit of the meeting's 30 seconds late, let's just check real quick. We're in the bathroom, let's check real quick. And like, you have to think about like, when am I going to do this? So I try on social media, and not always successful, of who do I want to go to look at? I am caring less about the daily interactions of my friends and more, well, social media friends, let's say that, and more about, let me go to this group and see what's happening. Let's go to this group. So one of my favorite groups is faculty of color and supporting. And so I will intentionally go and see what was posted and getting support. And so I think that's a way of like changing your relationship versus I'm just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think I want to say, going back to what you said about the likes and everything, when you are posting photos of yourself, you're getting meaningful engagement by people that matter in your life.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? So you don't care about just a like. It's more from someone that you actually care about. And I think that's what makes a
It's very
difference too.
important.
That's really good. Are there any guidelines, Aisha, on how much time we should spend on social media, or is it just does it vary
I
from
think
person to person?
everything is the relationship. Even other podcasts on here about what's your relationship with alcohol. It's less about the volume and how are you engaging in it. How do you feel before you do it and after you do it? There's times I'm like, oh, this is a great little funny thing I'm watching, and other times simple things like someone cooked a beautiful meal. I'm like, I can't do that.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, their arms look that way, mine don't look that way. And so I have to be really intentional, your algorithm, what you create. And so that I think it's just practice. Like I'm always big on what season of life are you in, and
I like that.
what do you need right now? And I want some balance of keeping up to date on what's happening in the world, but also like that's not what I need at night. With Instagram, I don't think you can let me know, filter out what you're seeing at different times of day. Like at one point I had what I learned from someone called a Finsta. It's a fake Instagram. So you have another one. I know.
Oh my God, I'm not sure I have one.
Yeah.
Really?
So I had like another one, but like it was just like dogs and joy.
Yeah.
Because I don't always want to intersect those.
point,
And so
That is such a good idea,
I
right?
have
Because
one,
you do. So you can't control the algorithm per se in a specific account, but you can create different accounts that have different algorithms, and you can watch those at different times of the day.
Yes.
That's better for you.
Yes.
Smart.
I mean, my public account, my main account is public. So everyone can see it. You don't have to request to follow me. And then I have my Finsta where you do have to request to follow me. And it's more like the actual, like, what's in my life, like what's going on. And I think that's a really good point. I forgot
like
about
an
that.
alter ego.
It is. It's like, what's actually
yeah, because it's like too much work, but it's like
It is,
but it did help me be like, what do I actually want to see? And then I changed my algorithm by liking things. So I'm constantly liking dog posts and getting more.
And I love dogs. Lolita does too. We love our fur babies.
Yeah.
But I noticed
Aisha has a dog.
I do. She'll be 5 this year. So it's on graduation day. So I was like, okay, I need to attend graduation, but my kid also, we got to go do stuff. So
I loved it. So we haven't talked about cyberbullying yet, and that's a hot subject too. And I notice when I'm on social media, sometimes I back away from a lot of the negative comments.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
'Cause I just don't want that negative energy around me. Let's talk about cyberbullying. Have you had any, experience with that? Or
I mean, yeah, I feel like it's such a sad thing. I mean, I don't think cyberbullying ever stops. I really don't. I don't think it ever will. And you can see so many like things under, I mean, I follow the president, whatever. You can like, he posts like all the time and you can see like, do your job instead of like, it's just things like that. Like, I don't want to get into that, but it's just like things like that. And like the Pistons, for example, I'm a big sports, like I said, so I'm going to talk about sports a lot, but the Pistons are on a losing streak, and everyone's just like, come on, like, it's just all this hate. And that's just for sports teams and the president. Imagine just one person, and that stuff adds up. I mean, you see, and when one person says one mean thing to you, you think about that thing all day. That's what at least I do. Like I will get, maybe let's say like I get a couple compliments, but I get that one comment that will just ruin my day. And it's unfortunate, and I don't think it ever stops. And I mean, I am grateful enough to not have a lot of cyberbullying in my life, but I can see it around me. And you can delete those comments, you can not answer people, but if you are scrolling on any social media platform, you are bound to see someone.
you see it.
Yeah.
So how can college students deal with cyberbullying? Because there's a lot, like what Elena said, a lot out there that we, deal with every day.
I think there's a range from not necessarily cyberbullying, but you thought this photo was perfect. You put the perfect photo on and someone says, nice. Yeah. And I'm like, that wasn't what I was looking. It's nothing wrong with
it sounds sarcastic.
Yeah. And you're like, but I spent 30 minutes creating this. Exactly. And it's like, that's all they had to say. Maybe it's not as much as I thought. And like, they were being mean, I think.
Or cute.
Yeah, exactly. Or thumbs up. You're like, thank you. Exactly. And so I think some folks have more public profiles, and anyone wants to follow them, that's great. And thinking about, if you're checking your notifications, how do you engage with those comments? Having a pre-conversation of like, my value is not attached to these comments, because social media can be anonymous to some extent of like, there's just somebody in this Facebook group that says something. And I've seen it in a lot of parenting groups. You share something and someone's like, your mom sounds like they need therapy. And then the social worker in me is like, here's a 3-paragraph nice way to have this conversation. And I'm not even addressing the other person, but I'm annoyed because you're saying therapy in a way that's like they are a problem versus like acknowledging that feeling. And so, but I remember when I did this recently, I'm checking the notifications to see if someone liked my comment, and someone was like, this is a beautiful response. And like, that was what I was looking for. But also there's this sense of like, well, what if no one likes that I said this wonderful thing? Am I valuable as a social worker? And so I think thinking about, how do you prepare to check your comments? But even when I look at different accounts, like the president, I have a bad habit of looking at the comments. Yeah. Because I'm like, ooh, let's go see what the tea is. And it's always there.
Yeah. I can tell you are an amazing therapist. If I need one again, I'm coming to you.
I have lots of recommendations.
I'm coming to you. Are there ways in which we can kind of insulate ourselves from the hurt that comes from bullying? I mean, other than just not going there, not seeing it. If we see it, if we're hurt by it, is there some way that we can heal just a little bit?
Yeah, I'm always promoting therapy. I always say I'm a therapist. I have a therapist. I'm on psychiatric meds. And so I'm sure my students are like, we get it. Like, you don't need to be pushing this. But I share that from day one because I want folks to know like how I move in the world. And so I will always say therapy, because you don't need to be having a problem. There's always things happening in life. And so even though cyberbullying can be attached to social media, what if someone gives you negative feedback? Like, what's the thoughts going through your head? And so sometimes we have cognitive distortions of someone didn't respond the way we want it, and we just stored it and catastrophize it. So you make a post that is maybe a current event going on, it's Black History Month, and someone says something, and you start to reevaluate who you are as a person. And you're like, I've dealt with this where I don't make posts, I'll respond to folks, but there's this sense of, well, am I really who I think I am? And so having a therapist and also other support systems to talk through, why are we listening to these people who don't know us?
Yeah.
And even if they are like social media friends we went with to high school or current, like they don't know who you are, but you have to have that prepared engagement with social media.
Yeah. I would love to add on to that. I love my therapist. I'm also on meds. And that's how I see the world too. Like, it's a great point. And I think it's so important to talk to people. Even if you don't feel comfortable going to a therapist, there's like, come to me, like I love talking and like listening to people. And like, there's just so many people out there that probably in everyone's life that you have that one person you can talk to. And for me, I'm lucky enough to have that support system. And it's nice, it helps with the comments and those things, because you can't avoid them,
Right. Yeah. What kind of advice would you give to faculty, to professors here on campus about social media harms, or even noticing that, some of their students are struggling, with social media and, having some issues in the classroom?
Yeah.
What would you say to faculty? Because I know you said, come talk to me. So transparency is very important to you.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple classes with Lolita, and she's very good with that, and most of my professors are like, I just feel so comfortable talking to my professors. And I am a public relations major, and so my major is a little bit smaller at Eastern, and I love it. Like, I get to know everyone, and it's just so nice. So another positive thing about social media is I get to follow them all on some sort of platform, and we all catch up with each other's lives. And if we have a question, we ask each other through that via social media. But it is nice when the professors, say like, come talk to me. Like, life is life. Life is going to happen. Like, you know, you're going to be late to class sometimes. You're going to not even be able to make it to class because those things happen. And I think that's very important to preach. And especially, you know, we all just have different ways of living, for sure.
Yeah, I think for faculty addressing the social media harms, in a class last week, we're talking about contemporary college students and different issues are going on. And I mentioned there's a group I really like on Facebook called Ask a Trans Person. And so this group is for people of different gender expressions to come on and say, how do I make this classroom more inclusive? So rather than myself as a cis-het woman trying to do this, ask people who are in that community, but then also giving the caveat of, hey, you know, not everyone on this platform is going to be using terms you're comfortable with. There could be still harm. And so for me being higher ed, meaning like I teach folks to be academic advisors, different student affair professionals, of thinking about that relationship with where you go and having intentionality and being prepared to get to be in that space, because there's so many great groups and then people just have nonsense comments on this really great platform. And so I think faculty should be talking about that, because it can be like, well, get on this Facebook page to look for jobs. But you should talk about, hey, it could be like very nerve-wracking when there's so many posts. And so I think having that conversation model, and I do that for my students, of like, maybe you do this at a specific time. You don't need to look through all the posts. Maybe you just check once a day, because there's so many things. On certain groups I'm a part of, there's so many great diversity, equity, inclusion programs going on, but like I can't keep up to date. And then I'm like, feel guilty. Like, I didn't attend this Thursday 1 to 3. Well, I'd had to leave a little early to teach. And so like trying to figure out like, how do you balance, like pick one thing you do a month.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, like, what do these people that are commenting underneath these random other people's posts, what do they get from it? You know, like,
That's
a really good point.
Exactly.
it blows my mind almost. Like, it's just like, I would never, I don't know if it's the way I was raised or people I was surrounded about, but it's like, I would never comment something mean on someone's post.
They have to get some type of gratification from it.
yeah.
Or, you know, the fact that someone's going to go back and forth with the comment that they made.
Yeah.
But why?
I mean,
I
I
often
see
wonder
it
the same thing.
so often, and it's just, I would just never do it, you know. And that's, I'm sure most of everyone here would never do that. So just kind of, it's crazy that you see so many of that, because it's wild, honestly.
So much harm.
It is, yes.
So we're going to transition in a minute to your experiences as a student athlete. But before we do that, Aesha, I want to come to you. So obviously, social media harms is a thing. Where can students get help? And I know you are an amazing therapist. Now, are you working with the counseling training clinic, but you also have your own place,
I'm
your own
in the
business?
leadership and counseling department, but I'm actually on the leadership side. But then I own my own private practice called Integrative Empowerment Group, and we specialize in working with BIPOC and LGBTQI plus students. And so I think talking to counselors, talking to your support system, I always say it needs to be a robust person or a robust team. If that's family, peers, my dog is part of this, my young nephews, and figuring out like what engagement would I have. Like when I'm with my nephews, I make a point, I don't know where my phone is. I don't want to be checking while they're on the swing, and that takes practice. The counseling clinic, CAPS can be great. Even talking to our advisors, I think seeing folks' roles as robust, and you don't necessarily have to have a degree in therapy to get support. Just talking with friends of like having that relationship that they may notice that, hey, you're constantly sending me TikToks. Is everything okay? Like my friends and I, a lot of it is TikToks, but it's like a couple a day and it's funny. And then we may have social commentary about this thing. Yeah. It's not just you give me one, I give you one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of family in Italy, and that's kind of how we connect. Like, you know, I don't get to see them every day, you know, especially not call them, and because of the time difference. So I think that's a very positive thing about social media, for sure.
That is. So there are some really good things about social media, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So where can they, now you're a professor here on campus, and you work in the leadership side of it, but you also want to own your own business, right?
Yes.
So how can they find you? Is that off campus?
It is off campus. We're located downtown Ypsi, right across from the Ypsi Transit Center. And I always tell folks we take insurance, including Medicaid, and also provide sliding scale therapy, because a lot of times we're like, go to therapy. And people are like, I don't have insurance. I have a $5,000 deductible. None of your therapists look like me. And that's something we counteract. So it's a very diverse practice. And by diverse, I mean we have 21 therapists and over half are Black. And sometimes places will say diverse and they're like, there's 2 people and everyone flocks to them. I also think social media can be helpful where there's a big boom in TikTok of folks talking about their experiences, particularly neurodivergency. And we have to be careful of seeing that as a conversation of, oh, I have some of those symptoms, but not necessarily diagnosing yourselves with a 5-minute video. But it can spark like, oh, I didn't know that wasn't normal for everyone. And so I think is again the relationship.
So you said neurodivergence. Can you just
Yeah. So in general, there's neurotypical, neurodivergent. So under there can be autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, learning disabilities, and they impact our lives a different way. And sometimes folks who are neurotypical, we all have I forgot this. I forgot something on the calendar. And with ADHD, it can have more consequences in life. So missing assignments, missing appointments, even though you put it in the calendar, there's a reminder, they called you, but there's still, it's just not awareness of time. And just trying to figure out how to engage that. So social media, okay, you're scrolling, it's really quick, but with ADHD, some folks may notice an hour and a half has passed. Oh crap. And then and then there's a shame spiral of like, this happened again. And so timers are a great way to be like, look at this for 10 minutes. Because sometimes even myself, I don't have ADHD, I'm neurotypical. I want one last hit of like finding the perfect dog picture before I go to bed. And it's like, they're all perfect, but trying to figure out what that looks like.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to put information on the screen for your what's the name of your
Integrative Empowerment Group. So it's integrativeempowerment.com.
Okay. So we're going to put that in the screen so people can find you. Right. Thank you so much. This is such an important topic.
I know we can
to
go
talk
on
about. I know we could
about social media.
We have to go on to the next topic, which is your experiences as a student athlete.
Yes.
Elena. You're on the cheer team. I am. Tell us about your experiences and how it affects your mental health.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can talk about this for hours, but I'll keep it short and sweet. But I love cheer. I mean, I've been doing it for 16 years. I kind of have to love it, you know. But it doesn't feel like a chore. And it is a lot. It is a lot of, you know, time consumption, mentally and physically exhausting. It is. But then you have those sweet spots of like, but I'm here with my best friends doing the thing I love, you know, like these people will be in my wedding, you know, like, you know, things like that. And I didn't want to do it in college. I did it, like I said, for 16 years. And when I was a senior in high school, I was like, I want to focus on my career. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know anyone who was going to Eastern. I'm 30 minutes away and I didn't know anyone. And things like that. And it was hard. I had to make that decision. And honestly, my mom convinced me, shout out to her, she'll love this, but she did convince me. And I was like, I'll give it 1 year. And I did. And I fell in love with it all over again. I have an amazing coach. I have the amazing sport system I have. And I can go on about the mentally and physically exhausting. I mean, you have to be physically built for any sport, really. Especially cheerleading, you are picking up someone and, you know, and doing all those crazy skills and flips and things. And so that's the physical side, but every sport I feel like is more mental than physical. Absolutely. And it was a big mental thing for me for a very long time. I mean, I would have breakdowns almost every night just over cheer. I always hear like you need to put the student before athlete, but I would always put athlete before student. And that was something I was worried about when I came to college. And I finally found a way to finally help myself out and kind of just take a day to realize, okay, it's just cheer, it's just a sport. You know, I need to focus on my career, I need to focus on that. And my coach and my teammates are so supportive of that. And it's so good to just talk to them about it, you know?
So that's one of the, you keep, you mentioned the support of your teammates and how the support, that's one of the questions that we were going to ask you. So that is a support system and there's no competition in there. Does that add to, okay.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
So
that's great.
It is. Yeah. So since we're like a whole team, we cheer each other on for everything. I write for the Echo, and I wrote a really good story lately, and my editor, he loves it. And so it's going to get published, and I'm really excited. And then they were like, I went to cheer yesterday, and they were like, well, bring some newspapers in. I'll show my parents. I'll show my family and things like that. And like, I have so much like little groups I'm in. I run a small business. I am at work for the Echo. Like I said, I'm a cheerleader. I have 18 credit hours. Yeah, so I have a busy life, and I still find time to manage it all. I still have amazing friends. I go home a lot to see my family, and yeah, so
That's great. Aisha, is Elena's experience on the cheer team typical, or might it be different for different sports where there's more competition for positions?
Yeah.
And
I think it'd be very typical. I also think as faculty and staff supporting student athletes to think about the roles they hold. So in social work, there's this term called parts work. So you have different parts of us. So I'm a social worker, I'm a wife, I'm a faculty, and they different intersect. But I think sometimes as faculty, we're like, well, you're here for an education. So who cares? You have 2 games a week. You better figure it out. Yes. And no, I'm not going to allow you to Zoom in or record it or miss a presentation, even though the student offered to record it. And the reality is for some folks with athletics, like this is a huge part of their identity. This may be how they afforded college. This could mean, maybe there was how they find joy in their parent or guardian was an athlete. And so I think trying to balance that we want to support our students so they do get an education to have something, but also not everyone is here for that. Sometimes students getting a degree is very functional. I need a long-term job that is stable, has healthcare, and athletics allows me to engage in that space. And so I think figuring out how we can support, because a lot of rhetoric is like, well, the world's not going to be accommodating, so you need to figure it out. I don't care that you have 2 games a week. And then what happens is for some students, like, what, I can't be in this program. Right. Or like our classes are all at night. And so that can be more difficult. And so then it's like, well, I guess I could take this class another semester, which is a lot what faculty say, but not every class is offered. So my program classes are offered. This is just this semester. And so working with folks, athletic directors, and the students of how can we accommodate you? And I think for faculty, we're often strapped and sometimes have this rhetoric of like, life is not like that, but it means so much to someone just to be like, okay, this is your schedule. How can we figure this out? Okay, we understand there's rigor, but there's always this like, well, that's not fair to the other students. Lots of things aren't fair, but it's about the equity and how can we support people.
yeah. I love the way you said that. Oh my gosh. It's so true.
It is like the amount of times I've heard that is crazy. And I mean, like, they're like, oh, you're a cheerleader? Like, come on, like, you got to make this work. I mean, we have to do football games, basketball games, and our own, and our own season nationals. Like, I go to Daytona in April and I miss a week. I don't get to have spring break. That's our practice time. So things like that. And it's stuff like, most of you guys might not know that, like that we don't do that. And yeah, it's so important to realize that things and that, it can get hard for student athletes.
So how do you do it all? I mean, because you said you have ADHD, right?
Yep. Yes.
You are on the cheer team and you have to support football and basketball and your own sport. You have 18 credit hours.
Yes.
How are you doing? And you're here today, Elena.
I know. I love to think of myself as a very outgoing, big personality person. And and so what I do, and I mean, it took me years to learn this. And I didn't just wake up one morning being like, oh, I know the key to everything, but this is just my experience. And so I had to grow up. I mean, I feel like in high school it was way worse. I mean, I had practice every single day. And then I had to, on top of that, like I had school, practice, and then my job, and all in a day. And then I had to do homework. It was crazy. And honestly, it was fun. I did things that I love to do. in college, I'm taking all these amazing classes, and that sounds weird to some people, like, oh, you enjoy school? I love it. I love it. I love being involved. I mean, I'm doing the Echo. I'm doing my little small business that I'm running for my nails and lashes that I do. But there are things that I love to do, and it makes it so much easier. It doesn't feel like I have to wake up in the morning and, oh man, I don't want to do this today.
That passion.
Yeah,
you're passionate about everything.
And I mean, I do need help sometimes. I do talk to my parents a lot, and I talk to my other teammates and my assistant coaches who actually help me a lot. We have to work out 3 times a week, and I don't have that time. I don't. And so I sent my schedule to my assistant coach. I said, please help me. And she did. And it's not like I have to wake up at 5 a.m. or anything, it's still like a decent time. So getting help from others and doing something you love, I think is so important.
Yeah,
I
great words
I
of
certainly see the
advice.
passion in you. As you said, I mean, you're in one of my classes, and I've had you before, and I hope you don't mind saying that you are an amazing student, an excellent
I
student.
love
So
hearing that.
everything that you're doing is definitely working for you. So keep it up. But I'm really glad that you have that support system that allows you to do that.
And I mean, I've made the Dean's List 3 semesters in a row, and it's so crazy to me because I would never think that. I didn't even want to go to college, like things like that. And it's just, things that I now I'm doing all these things, and it sounds overwhelming, but when you find that schedule and those people and those things you love, it makes it not a chore.
Yeah,
It does.
yeah, and faculty who listens, right? They know that you're
so
a busy,
important.
athlete. So I'd like to ask you a question just about, I know it's important faculty should be aware of student athlete schedules, but can you talk about some of the mental health challenges that student athletes face?
Yeah, so I think for some folks, depending high school, they could have had a robust academic career, they were recruited, and they come here and things may shift. Now you're in charge more of your class schedule. Maybe you're seeing your peers do different things, and so how do you set yourself up for success when you're here? So there can be anxiety, depression. So sometimes working with a sports therapist who's like, okay, you're having this perfectionism going on. We see it in sports, particularly sports for men, this anger that can occur, toxic masculinity, that's a whole other subject. And so what does that look like? How are you taking care of yourself? Because it's physically grueling. And then while our student athletes are young, our bodies are still changing and can do different things. What happens when you get an injury and that was your identity, and maybe it's an injury that takes you out for the season, maybe your career has ended as an athlete, and what are the other parts of us again that can support that? So some folks, it's a huge depression that can occur, anxiety of, this is what I thought I was going to do. I was maybe set up to go professional. This is how I was going to support my family, change my network, and that has shifted. And so does that look like maybe moving into coaching, to supporting folks, maybe being a therapist for athletes? And so you're not losing that connection to that role.
Absolutely. But how do they discover, how do they get to that point? Is
Therapy.
There you go. There you go.
I'm saying with therapy before there's an issue, because often when people come in, it's a crisis, or many people are saying it. So having that set up with a therapist, I mean, I think with my students, like, you're going through transition periods in general. Some are graduating, new internship, parenting. There's all these different things. So having that ahead of time, maybe you're graduating, it's just a huge transition because there's this pressure of, I got to figure out with my life what I'm doing. I'm 35. No, I'm still figuring it out. And like giving therapies help me understand, like, different seasons I do different things in our life. And so having those conversations, faculty who acknowledge, hey, you're graduating. So I've heard from students who are like, I'm graduating this semester. They're master level students. They're nervous about the career and the status of that and insurance. And so I was like, okay, actually, let's leave 15 minutes at the end of class for you all to ask questions for me. I'm meeting with the students soon to let's do a mock interview. And there are resources on campus that they can do that, but they also trust me, and particularly thinking about students with ADHD. That's another step to be like, I got to make an appointment over there.
Yep.
What is it going to be like?
Yep.
Versus I'm here now. Ask me anything.
Yes.
I love the time. I love that you take the time. You have so many resources. And again, we're going to put all of those on the screen. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. I know.
No way.
I know. Any last question you want to ask Melissa, and then anything that you all want to add before we wrap up?
Any last question? Wow. Well, we covered two really important topics. And so, I mean, is there anything that you think that we did not cover that you want our viewers, our listeners to know? Either subject, social media harms, or being a student athlete, dealing with the joy of that, but also the pressures that come along with it.
Yeah, I mean, I just going to repeat what I said because I think it's just so important, but just doing what you love, just finding that one thing that you love to do is just so important. And I can't preach it enough. I really can't.
You beam that. So, yeah, you are the
Thank
poster child for that, Elena.
Thank you.
So congratulations.
And I think for me, it goes back to the relationship. And there's no right or wrong answer. We always want to know, well, how many hours a day should we do this? Mm-hmm. And what is your relationship? For example, with moving your bodies or exercise, yes, the American Heart Association says something, but are you enjoying that or does it feel like punishment?
Yeah.
And so the relationship is important. There's no yes or no. Mm-hmm. And I'm big on what season of life you are in and giving yourself grace that things may shift. This may not be the season where you are fully committed to academics or athletics. That is okay, and to not compare ourselves to other people, because you may have a lot of Eastern students working multiple jobs, 18 credits, working out, have family time, sleep. There's a lot of things going. I know, I'm exhausted thinking about. There's a lot of things going on, and so that may shift what you can do. And also recognizing all those hats we wear and responsibilities can impact our ability, like our physical health, our ability to nourish ourselves. And so giving ourselves grace that things are shifting.
You are just so full of wisdom. I need to come see you.
Maybe here in the therapy.
I need to come see you.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Aesha and Elena. We have Melissa and I said we learned
All
so
the
much.
time.
This is a show for our learning.
Absolutely.
You all have certainly
and
contributed
to spread
to
the
it.
word too.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
have people in Florida and all over watching us. So yeah, we appreciate the two of you coming on.
you.
Of course.
It's been great.
It's awesome.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, Lolita, that was such a good show. Social media harm has been in the news so much lately. I'm glad we were able to have a student and expert on today to share their perspectives and advice.
Well, now that we're nearly done, remember, if you'd like to join us here at the table, or if you have an area of social media you'd like us to cover, please email us at the address on the screen. And before you click off, don't forget to leave us a comment, like us, and share it. We'd certainly appreciate it. We'll see you on the 15th of next month. Bye for now.